$1,000 a month, just showing up in your account, whether you work that month or not. Most people hear passive income and think it's a vague dream, something rich people have that you don't get access to. It's not vague, it's math. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact number you need invested to make that happen. And it's probably not what you think. Here's why most passive income content fails you. It's all vibes. Build multiple income streams. Let your money work for you. Nice sentences, zero numbers. Nobody tells you the actual dollar figure you need sitting in an account before the first check shows up. And when nobody gives you the real number, your brain fills the gap with the worst-case assumption that it's probably millions. So why bother starting? It's not millions, but it's also not nothing. Let's do the actual math, method by method, so you know exactly what you're working toward instead of guessing. The most straightforward path to monthly passive income is dividend investing. So let's start there and do the real calculation. $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year. To get $12,000 a year from dividends, you divide that by your dividend yield to get the principal you need invested. At a 3% yield, which is roughly what a broad dividend-focused index fund pays, you'd need $400,000 invested. At a 4% yield, you're down to $300,000. At 5%, $240,000. That range, $240,000 to $400,000, is the real number most passive income videos never say out loud. It's a lot of money. It's also not an impossible number if you're investing consistently over 15 or 20 years, which is the actual realistic timeline here, not the 6 months to freedom fantasy some corners of the internet sell you. Let's make this concrete with an actual example. Say you land at a solid, sustainable 4% yield on a dividend-focused fund. $300,000 invested at 4% produces $12,000 a year in dividends, exactly your target, paid out as roughly $8,000 every single month once the fund distributes on a monthly schedule, which many dividend ETFs now do specifically because investors want that steady paycheck feel. Here's where people get this wrong in the other direction. They see that higher yield means less principal needed, so they go hunting for the highest yield they can find. 8%, 10%, 12% in some cases. Yield that high is almost never free money. It usually means one of two things. The underlying business is under real stress, and the market is pricing in a dividend cut, or the fund is paying out return of your own capital dressed up as a dividend, meaning you're not earning income. You're just getting your own money back on a schedule while your principal quietly shrinks. Here's what that actually looks like in practice. A fund advertising a 12% yield sounds like it would only need $100,000 to hit your $1,000 a month target, far less than the $240,000 to $400,000 range. But if that 12% yield isn't sustainable and gets cut in half within a year or two, which happens constantly with reach for yield funds, your actual income drops to $500 a month, right, when you were counting on the full amount, and the share price usually falls right along with the cut. A sustainable, well-covered yield in today's market sits somewhere between 3 and 5% for most quality dividend payers. Anything meaningfully above that needs real scrutiny before you trust it as reliable monthly income. Chasing yield is the single most common way people blow up a passive income plan before it ever produces real income. The math so far assumes every dollar of dividend income reaches you untouched. It doesn't. unless you're careful about where the investment sits. Qualified dividends held in a regular taxable brokerage account get taxed at long-term capital gains rates better than ordinary income, but still a real bite, typically 15% for most people. That means your $12,000 a year target might actually need to be closer to $14,000 a year of gross dividend income to net $12,000 after tax, which pushes your required principal up accordingly. The fix is straightforward. Hold the dividend-paying investments inside a Roth IRA when you can. Dividends inside a Roth grow and get withdrawn completely tax-free in retirement, which means the number I gave you earlier, the $240,000 to $400,000 range, actually holds if the money sits in the right account. Outside a Roth, add roughly 15 to 20% to that target to land on the same real, spendable number. So how long does it actually take to get there? Let's say you're targeting the middle of that range around $300,000, assuming a 4% yield and you're starting from zero. Investing $800 a month into a total market or dividend-focused index fund, assuming an average return around 7% a year including reinvested dividends, gets you to roughly $300,000 in about 18 years. Push that to $1,200 a month, and you're there in about 14 years. It's a real number on a real timeline, not fast, but not fantasy either. To put those contribution numbers in perspective, $800 a month is roughly what a lot of households spend on a car payment and its related costs combined. $1,200 a month is closer to a second modest car payment on top of that. The point isn't that this is easy, it's that the amount required is a real, specific number you can compare against your own budget today, not an abstraction you can never quite picture. The part that actually matters here is consistency, not perfection. The exact fund you pick matters less than whether you keep contributing every single month, regardless of what the market is doing that week. Missing contributions during downturns is the single biggest thing that pushes this timeline out further than it needs to be. Dividend investing isn't the only route to monthly passive income, and it's worth mentioning the other major one honestly. Real estate through REITs if you want the hands-off version, or through direct rental property if you're willing to do the work of being a landlord. REITs real estate investment trusts trade like stocks, but are required by law to distribute at least 90% of their taxable income to shareholders, which is why they tend to carry higher yields than typical dividend stocks, often in the 4 to 6% range. The math works the same way as the dividend calculation above, just with a different starting yield. Direct rental property can produce stronger cash flow per dollar invested, but it's not actually passive, it's a part-time job wearing a passive income costume, unless you're paying a property manager, which eats into the returns. If your goal is genuinely hands-off income, REITs and dividend funds get you there with far less operational overhead than owning physical property directly. Here's the number one more time so it sticks. $240,000 to $400,000 invested, depending on the yield you're targeting, gets you $1,000 a month in passive income. Held in the right account, taxed correctly, built through consistent monthly investing over 15 to 20 years. That's not a vague dream anymore. That's a target with a number attached to it. Pick your monthly contribution, pick your timeline, and start this week. The version of you 15 years from now is either collecting that check or wishing you'd started today. If this helped, subscribe. I break down one of these a week. No fluff, just the actual math behind the decisions that separate people who build wealth from people who just talk about it.